It was the center of the world
Yeah.
for the community.
Growing up in the Ukrainian community, the church has always been the hub of the community. And in fact, that's how the funeral home actually came to be, was because of the church. Just to give you a little insight on that, back in the early 40s, there was a large population of Ukrainians that lived in Hamtramck, including my grandparents and my father's parents. And when the war broke out, my father went into the Army, and he was trained as a field medic. After the war ended, he came back to Hamtramck, and they had just finished completing the construction on Immaculate Conception Church. My dad's family, and my dad as well, was very, very associated with the church. And the priests actually came to my dad and said, Steve, listen, in our community, we've got doctors, we've got lawyers, we've got dentists, we've got teachers. What we're missing in our community is we need a funeral director. And they said, you've got all this training from the Army being a field medic. Well, we suggest if you're thinking about this, you can go to mortuary school, get a mortuary license, and get you a funeral home. So my dad took him up on it, and he went and enrolled at Wayne State University School of Mortuary Science. And within 1 year, he got not only his embalmer's license, but he got his funeral director's license, because there were two separate licenses back then. The priest owned the property that the funeral home was on, and they went to him and said, Steve, listen, now that you got your license, we're going to sell you the property right across the street from the church and want you to build a funeral home. So he built the funeral home. And he opened up the funeral home between 1946 and 1947. They lived upstairs of the funeral home. I can remember as kids, we were playing in the funeral home, and it was always like, shh, quiet, there's services going on downstairs. Shh, don't make any noise and everything like that. But it's kind of short-lived because, like I said, my dad died when I was 5 years old, and we lived a very short time up there.
My cousin called me and said, I met two guys at this reunion. One is a doctor/attorney, and the other one's really nice. He's good looking. I says, well, what does he do? She said, he's really nice. Well, he happened to be Chris, who is a funeral director. And I said, I'll beat the other guy. I was taken by limo in my wedding dress to the funeral home, where I went up into the kitchen and I could look down and watch people walking into church to come to attend our wedding. And we were married in this most incredibly beautiful Ukrainian Catholic church, Immaculate Conception, which is across the street. And then after our honeymoon, I moved into the funeral home where we lived.
Yeah. We used to be open from 10 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night. And people say, well, who would be there all day long? Well, you know what? We were open because everybody walked to Joseph Campo. All the women would walk with their baskets.
They'd come in, yeah.
And they'd go on the way, they'd stop in, they'd say a prayer and leave. And on the way back from their shopping, they'd leave their cart on the porch, they'd go in, say another prayer, and they'd leave. And there would be a steady stream of all these women during the day that were going to Joseph Campo to go grocery shopping. And that's why we stayed open from 10 to 10. When our people come, there's a service the night before the funeral where everybody flocks to. It's 7 o'clock. We call it a panajeda. In the panajeda, everybody comes to that. And at 6 o'clock at night, the building could be empty. By 6:45, you have 150 people in there.
Crammed in.
And by 7:30, everybody leaves. But it's for that one service everybody comes for. And that little room didn't work. So my mom put that addition on there to make it more suitable for a larger crowd of people, because the whole neighborhood was just all Ukrainians. Most of them didn't even have cars because they walked everywhere, because everything was in walking distance. Joseph Campo, the bank, the bakery, everything you possibly needed was right
like
there.
a small town.
A village.
And I will say, he has become the center of the community too, and they won't let him retire.
At this point of our careers, at some point in time, we've come across every family in this community. Mm-hmm. And you've had relationships with them. So when they cry, you cry. When their heart breaks, your heart breaks. So.
And sometimes it's emotionally draining.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very hard to.
That's the hard part about an ethnic business. My brother called me up. He said, Chris, he says, I'm going to come spend the night with you at the funeral home because you know what? The Pope's coming. We'll go shoot down there at 5 o'clock in the morning. We'll go stand where he's supposed to be and we'll take some pictures and everything. I said, yeah, okay, Steve, no problem. We got up like 4 o'clock in the morning. We ran down to Joseph Campo. And
Did you climb a tree?
Well, he was supposed to stop in front of the Polish park there, which has a statue of the Pope there. And we're waiting. He's supposed to be on schedule and everything. He's not coming. All of a sudden we look and also like, yeah. Pope goes by like this.
You
and the
could
kids
see
are
like
dancing and they're stopping. They look.
White.
It was all, that was it. It was all I saw was the Pope just zip by in his Pope mobile.